Sorry? All right. So let's do what we set out to do the other day and never did. Since I typed both names, first let me do him, then I'll do Herder. Okay, otherwise if I ambitiously sit and type his name and talk about something else, it's not going to be great, isn't it? Okay. Giambattista Vico is the Italian. If you come across his name this way, yes, Prashant, you wanted to say something?
Yes, sir. He want to say something.
Raised a hand.
He wants to congratulate you, sir.
Sorry?
He wants to congratulate
Who?
you.
Sir, congratulations for your awards, sir. One international award and 2 national level awards.
What international award?
For your teaching excellence, sir. This year you are nominated for 2 awards.
Sir, we are
Congratulations, sir.
really proud of you, sir. I mean, we are lucky to having a wonderful teacher like you, sir.
Thank you.
Congratulations, sir. Really.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congrats, sir.
Thank you. Well, I'm happy and proud to say that I'm one person who's never had to use any kind of influence through politicians or any. I don't even know that these awards exist. They are supposed to nominate people, and that is who nominated you is kept. That is kept secret. They don't reveal the name of the person who nominated you. So whatever I got, must have been some students only, because my colleagues, I don't know. There are some people across the country that I know. So maybe for some of them, somebody has proposed or nominated me. But otherwise, it's mainly my students. And I don't even know that these awards exist. I really don't know. I take it as my grandfather's, father's, and mother's blessing. Okay. Sorry, I got a bit emotional there. So Giambattista Vico is another variation Amulya, no, not while the class is on. Okay. Um, okay. So Giambattista Vico is the Latin. There are 3 languages in the world where everything ends with a vowel, whether it is a name or a regular word. Sorry. So in Italian, actually, if you take the Latin version, Giovanni Battista Vico, in English, it will translate into John Baptist Vico. That's what it will translate into. Giovanni is John in English, and Battista is Baptist, and Vico. If you know your Christian lore, there was this, if you read the Bible, you'll find references to John the Baptist. John the Baptist was somebody who used to baptize people so that the original sin of birth could be washed away. Okay, so it was actually John Baptist Vico, but in conjugating in conjugation in Italian, it becomes Giambattista Vico. Okay, otherwise, if there is no Battista, instead of Giovan, they would write Giovanni. Okay, Giovanni, Giovanni, right? So that is John in Italian. Juan, Juan, Juan in Spanish, Jean, Jean in French. They're all John, the Christian name. But have you ever heard of this word? This is the only digression, which is for a minute. Have you ever heard of this?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
No.
I hope it is Joker clone.
Joker, clown. You heard very correctly. What does it, where does it come from?
I don't know, sir.
Well, it comes from Giovanni was a clown, and he was known for doing unpredictable things. Okay, not necessarily funny. He used to surprise audiences with unpredictable things, and so that became Giovanni. Like people in Italian would say, he's a Giovanni type of person. By the time it came into English, it became zany, but otherwise it is Giovanni. That is the basis for that. Now, like I said, let's not unnecessarily go into things that are not connected with us. Sorry. Okay. Now, please remember one thing here. Instead of calling somebody a scholar of jurisprudence, in American English, people say he's a jurist. Okay, that is not a correct thing to do. A jurist is a practicing person in the field of jurisprudence. So if you were a judge in those times, or if you were even some kind of a lawyer, they would call you a jurist. But strictly speaking, jurist, unless that person is a practitioner of law, should not be used on those kind of people. So he was a scholar of jurisprudence. Okay. Now he was a rhetorician. Rhetorician, please remember, rhetoric is the art of persuasion. Okay. Persuading people to believe what you're saying. So that there is no problem with. That he was a scholar of jurisprudence also there is no problem with. But historian, he had a theory that linked philosophy to history. But there is no evidence in Vico to show that he was a historian. Now, what does a historian do? A historian essentially links, okay? A historian essentially links history, not links, documents. What am I saying? A historian documents history or theorizes history or theorizes what happened in history, maybe even talk about what will be the history of the future. But none of these things you will find in Vico. So to call Vico a historian is a bit inconvenient. Now, what Vico actually did is he linked philosophy to history. Okay. I will come back to this. This is a bit of a confusing area. The way he talked about philosophy and history, because he talked about not the history of philosophy, but he talked about the philosophy of history. And very funnily, some people claim that it is not even a philosophy of history that he's talking about, but we'll come to that in a couple of minutes. Let's not jump into the deep end first and then come to the shallow side. We'll first get into the shallows and then we'll go into the deep end. Okay, he is actually considered okay. Uh, he's considered by many to be the first ever person to talk about the fundamentals or the fundamental constituent elements of a social science. And he's also considered to be one of the first persons to have used semiotics, or actually the usage will be semiosis. Semiotics is the what should I say? Uh, Semiosis is the process, and semiotic is the study of that process. Evolution of symbols and signs. Again, we'll be coming to that very shortly. Now, when we talk about that, the idea that he talked about the fundamentals of a social science, well, not really, because we have the positivists, we have Auguste Comte, uh, but the way in which Vico constructed a social science is very, very different from the way in which uh, the positivists talk about a social science. Okay, so we'll get to that point as well. Now, he is credited with the coining of a Latin aphorism which goes Verum SA, not SA, sorry. Verum esse ipsum factum. Some people say that it is factotum. No. If you come across that as factotum, factotum is a completely different meaning. This is not a factotum, it's a factum. Factum is what you translate into English as a fact. Okay, so by now I hope you've got the hang of why I am doing Vico before I move on to hermeneutics. Okay, because this is a contrast to positivism. There are some, no, wait a minute, what am I doing? What does verum esse ipsum factum mean? Let's translate that into English. What is true? The English word veracity comes from verum. So what is true is precisely what is made. Okay. What is true is precisely what is made. Now, that's a very funny sentence. So let's go around unraveling this aphorism. An aphorism is a short, pithy saying that is full of meaning. Okay, that's how you have to understand aphorisms. This aphorism is considered to be so this is considered to be a constructive epistemologist's statement. And Vico is considered to be one of the, not the, one of the early constructivist epistemologists. So what is constructive epistemology? Let's try to understand. Constructive epistemology Okay. Thomas Kuhn actually borrowed heavily from Vico, uh, especially when he wrote that essay of his, which is, what is it called now? Yeah, The Structure of the Scientific Revolution. When he wrote that essay, he used this argument of constructive epistemology that you find in Vico. So what does it mean? For Vico, all knowledge is knowledge that is constructed by the scientific community. That is what he means by what is true is precisely what is made. Making, constructing, all these things. Okay, so there is no knowledge, scientific or otherwise, which is not produced by the human mind, but not one person, but an entire group of people. They apply themselves to the understanding of something, and it is the consensus that those people reach which will be classified as scientific knowledge. Okay, so the scientific community has to be understood basically. Okay, you have to understand it as something which is in the nature of a group of not scientists as lab wearing lab coats and all that, but a group of working together in trying to define problems and finding solutions. So it is all knowledge is a mental construct. That is what Vico says. Now let's come to this point here. Vico is also believed to be the man who talked about the will it fit? It won't. The philosophy of history being being narrated philosophically. This is the confusing part, the very, very confusing part about Vico. Okay, he's supposed to have said that there is a philosophy of history, and that this philosophy of history needs to be narrated philosophically. Okay, Now, if you read it like this, then it is terribly confusing, right? If you're, because you can understand if you put this, let's say, as he talked about the history of philosophy, and he believed that it should be narrated historically, then you'll say, I'll go chronologically or something. But what is the philosophy of history? Question number one is, what does he mean by the philosophy of history? The second thing that we need to understand is, what does he mean by narrated philosophically? Narration can be both oral and written. Okay, it can be oral and written. But let's try to make out, let's unravel the secret of Vico. Okay, Vico has been in the past and in his own time he has been called an apologist for antiquity, and that he did not believe in modern science modern science and things like that. Antiquity, as you all know, is ancient Greece and to a limited extent Rome. And if you remember what I told you when we were doing ancient Greece, in ancient Greece, philosophy and science are terms that can be used interchangeably. These are two terms that can be used interchangeably. So what he means by philosophically is actually what he means as that which is narrated scientifically. Okay, so a scientific narration. Okay, that's what he's talking about. A scientific narration of history. So he is talking about what happened in history, but instead of this being done haphazardly, he is saying do it methodically, which is what the Greeks claimed both about philosophy and science. They believed that there was a methodical component to this. So if you do things methodically, then you get answers to the questions that you want. So he is therefore, while saying that I'm talking about the philosophy of history, he's actually talking about how things happened in history, but he's narrating them in a scientific manner, as in methodically telling you the story of how knowledge of a certain time came into being. That is what is the uh, that is what is the crux of the matter. If you don't understand that he's using scientific and philosophical interchangeably, then this is a completely meaningless, confusing sentence. Okay, and as far as his, I don't think he is an apologist. Some people call him that, but he's not an apologist. Why should he apologize? Because there was something great in ancient Greece, so which perhaps went missing with things like empiricism and positivism. So when he talks about that, and when he also talks, one of his arch enemies is René Descartes. Okay, but we'll come to that when we move a little more forward. He has been his being called historicist is completely wrong, because nowhere in his writings do you get to see uh, his being a historicist. Okay, who's a historicist? A historicist is one who is a historian of ideas. Okay, I can think of, let me start with a person who was actually very influenced by Vico, and his name is Isaiah Berlin. Okay, Isaiah Berlin is one of the people who has been uh, a historian of ideas, and he has been influenced by Vico. Another very famous name, another person who's a historian of ideas, Edward Said. Okay, don't read that as said. Edward Said. Edward Said wrote this book called Orientalism, uh, in which he argues that the West has produced through its own lens a certain idea of what the Orient or the East is. And this is not an accurate depiction of what the East is. So Orientalism is a pejorative term. It's a pejorative term because it is a misunderstanding of what the Orient is and not an understanding of it. That is the argument of Edward Said in his book Orientalism. And Edward Said is another person who was he's a Lebanese thinker. And he is somebody who was very influenced by Vico. I've already told you Thomas Kuhn is another person who has been who has basically been inspired by Vico. So he is also said to have had an influence on Michel Foucault, about whom I have talked to you many times. I'll just write his Michel Foucault. Michel Foucault very often has been called a structuralist, but Foucault has always rejected that idea that, he's a structuralist. He says, I'm not a structuralist. And when he was asked to describe himself or categorize himself, he said, I'm a historian of ideas. And most of the ideas that I have worked on are not a body of coherent knowledge, which means that, it's not like you can put all the works of Foucault together and from that you can derive one meaning. You can't. Foucault is multi-dimensional in his conclusions about various ideas of that existed in history, and some of them contradict each other. Some of his conclusions contradict each other, so he doesn't have a cogent knowledge. I should have talked about Foucault because another person who's like him, who has all unfinished ideas, he has finished ideas. Let's be fair to him. Foucault has unfinished ideas, but not necessarily consistent with each other. But you have somebody like Herder, who has hardly completed a particular idea that he has taken up for consideration. Now, so historicists, these are historicists. Isaiah Berlin, Edward Said, and Michel Foucault, they all qualify to be called historicists, and they all are people who believed in exploring ideas historically. Now, the main work of Vico's that brought him into prominence is actually called, for some strange reason, he wrote in Latin. Now, what's happening here? He wrote this work called, I don't know how this is pronounced in Latin. I think it is Scienza, not Scienza. Scienza Nuovo, which means new science. And what is this new science? It is a systematic organization of all the humanities. Systematic organization of all the humanities. Now, please remember that humanities are disciplines that deal with the human being and the human condition. Okay. Of late, of course, you say humanities are different from social sciences and all that. But if you really have to understand humanities, I think Quentin Skinner was very correct when he wrote that book of his, which somebody has taken away from me and not returned. That book is called The Return of the Grand Theory to the Human Sciences. He doesn't call it social sciences. He uses the term human sciences. And I thought that is a better term than social sciences, but it has not gained currency, so I don't use it. But I personally prefer that particular uh, term, or even if you don't want to call them sciences, just call them humanities. I have absolutely no problem. Anything that deals with human beings should be called humanities. But then, well, we have to go by some kind of established conventions, established narratives, because if you go against them, then you risk the problem of not being understood correctly. So one of the reasons why, even if you don't really subscribe to something fully, you still end up using those words or phrases because you want to essentially be understood and not misunderstood. So he systematic organization of all humanities, let's say into a single science that recorded and explain the historical and no, yeah, that recorded and the historical cycles by which uh, what do we say here? By which, yeah, societies rise and fall. This is a not cryptic. It's a pithy definition of the Scienza Nuovo, or the new science, where he's saying that it is a systematic organization of all humanities into one science, not social sciences. We use them in the plural. He wants to use it in the singular. And this science would have recorded and explained the historical cycles by which societies rise and fall. So what does he mean by that? He is talking about the Greek. When he talks about society, he's not talking about society in the narrow sense of the term, which is what we do. He's talking about societies as those large civilizations. Okay, when he talks about societies, please remember this point very, very carefully. He talks about large civilizations that rise and fall. Like, for example, the Greek civilization. It rose and it fell. Then it was followed by the Roman civilization that also rose and had its downfall. And then the Christian civilization, which also went up and came down. Right. So he's looking at societies as these developments. Okay. And he's saying that these developments are the ones that one should be looking at through one science that explains all these things. Why do these things happen? Okay, and well, I'm afraid I'll have to put this on the top. He likened civil life to mathematics, which is wholly constructed okay. Civil life is our general life, and he likened civil life to mathematics. Mathematics is completely constructed, solely constructed by the human mind. There is no mathematical reality which is independent of the human mind. So he believes civil life, meaning rules and regulations and all these things that we live by in a civil manner, which is a civilized manner. You can, if you like, you can call it civilized life. Okay, so he likened it to mathematics. which is completely constructed by the human mind. So it is here where traditions and conventions become extremely important for people like uh, Rousseau. What am I saying? Vico. Okay. Now I'll have to delete some of these. Wow. He also talked about a principle which he called verum factum. Okay. He talked about this in his work, which he again, unfortunately for you and me, wrote it in Latin. It is not the anti-kissime. No, is it kissime or kissima? The anti-kissima Italorum sapienta ex linguae this should be with a capital L, Latine originibus eruenda. This is that essay that he wrote. How does it translate into English? It translates into English as the most important ancient wisdom sapient of the Italians unearthed from the origins of the Latin language. Okay, so he goes back to antiquity, and when he says wisdom of the Italians, he's not only talking about Italians as the generators of the wisdom, but also, please remember, I keep telling you this, that Italy is very close to Greece and to Rome. Rome is a part of Italy now. not then. So there was a great deal of knowledge of the ancient or wisdom of the ancient uh, variety, which was used by the Italians. And he says this has to be unearthed from the origins of the Latin language. So that is the most important twist that he generates. He says you have to unearth the wisdom from the origins of the Latin language. Go back to the origins of the Latin language, see how it came into being, see how it unfolded, and then you will be able to get to the ancient wisdom. And that is why he's considered to be somebody who's against modern rationalism, which is perhaps right. Okay, let's understand what verum factum means. Verum factum states that uh, truth is verified by creation or invention of something, but not through not through rational observation. So he's against the whole idea of observation being the basis of knowledge. He says you cannot establish the truth of a proposition by observing it. Here he is basically criticizing René Descartes. And this is also an instance of his semiosis at work, because it is through construction, or rather creation or invention need not be things. It can be new categories of thought. In fact, it is that, not it can be. It is the new categories of thought which he believes are the way in which you establish or verify the truth of something, and not through observation. You don't observe something and say that is true and not this is not true. It is through the creation or invention of new categories of thought, which is what he calls something. And it is this creation of the new types of symbols, signs, S-I-G-N-S, science, signs, not science, I'm sorry, signs. These are all the things that make him a constructivist. He is exactly the opposite of Descartes. What does Descartes do? Breaking up things into rock bottom simples. He took the resolutive compositive method of the Paduans into consideration and applied it to the human being, became a radical skeptic, and tried to establish one's own existence through a series of observations uh, which actually give way to another question till such time that you reach a rock bottom. Till such time that you reach a rock bottom, which means it cannot be broken anymore. So when you ask yourself this question, how do I know I am thinking? I've explained this, so I'm not going to go into it again. How do I know I am thinking? If you take that into consideration as the rock bottom, because if you ask yourself, how do I know I am thinking? Then you're logically contradicting yourself. If you're not thinking, then who's thinking? And if you're not knowing, then who is knowing that you're thinking? Right? So it is your thought which is the proof of your existence. I think, therefore I am. And in Latin, cogito ergo sum. This for Vico let me just put it here. Okay, this form of modern rationality that has been espoused by René Descartes, for Vico, it is reductivist epistemology. And since you're breaking things down into their simples through your observation, that is destructive. Okay, so this reductivist epistemology, for him, some people use reductionist. Either of the usages are fine. reductivist epistemology or reductionist epistemology. Both can be accepted. Both of them can be accepted. Okay, and since you're reducing things, breaking them up, he considered it to be destructive. And hence, he preferred the virum factum and, of course, this scienza nuovo, which is all constructive, because you're constructing, putting together things. So he's a constructivist, and therefore he doesn't take kindly to reductionism or reductivism, which is for him destructive. We can go on, but I think I'll stop here. For once, I am feeling tired because you people didn't come in the morning. I was sitting and doing. I wish I could take this off. It makes me feel like a call center executive. The only thing is, if I take this off, then you don't get good audio. I tried teaching without this horrible contraption on my head, and it's not good, and all other noises that happen in the room and all get in. So I'll stop here with your permission, but I'm open to questions. Please don't play music. Please don't play music in the background. A video won't get loaded. Video won't get loaded, please.
Sir,
Yeah,
sir, all modern rationalists are destructive, sir.
not all. The Cartesian school. Not all. Cartesian school, which is the earliest, one of the earliest form of modern rationalism. One of the earliest forms of modern rationalism. So that he considers destructive. Not all.
Okay.
Who drew this? Kindly tell me who has hated me so much that you decided to draw this? Really? Was this class so bad?
No, sir.
Yeah. Any questions?
Sir,
Yes, sir.
sir, in evolution process, even language changes, sir.
Yes, it does.
So, to understand the ancient wisdom, I think even one needs to go to ancient terminology.
Right. You're absolutely right.
That means we even can't say. That means we even can't say Vico is completely wrong when he says we need to go to ancient wisdom of knowledge to understand ancient ideas.
Did I say he's wrong? No way. I didn't say he's wrong at all. Completely or partially, I didn't say he's wrong. He's not wrong. He's right. And he's saying exactly what you said. Unearthed from the origins of the Latin language. Because origins of the Latin language, he was also writing in Latin. But that Latin was significantly different from the Old Latin. Right? it was significantly different from the old Latin. That is why he's saying unearthed from the origins of the Latin language. Only then it is correct. If you apply your categories to it, then it is not. So I never said he's wrong. I didn't say he's wrong. He's pretty much correct.
And sir, even to understand ancient wisdom, one need to observe all the events that had taken place there.
No, you don't need to. Because it is in the construction of the language, the way in which an idea has been expressed, that gives you an idea of what knowledge in the ancient period was. The way in which knowledge was used at that particular time. If you look at it, then you get it. It has no observation. He does not use the observation principle at all. It is only reading or speaking, no observation. He's anti-observation.
Sir, I want to know the meaning of the word phenomenology. Phenomenology.
Can you tell me the spelling, please?
Phenomo.
Phenomenology.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That is a very complicated thing, but let me just give you one answer now. We will be studying phenomenology when we do Gadamer in hermeneutics. Okay, where there will be reference to phenomenology. Phenomenology has been used in two different ways. One is the Hegelian usage, which he did in the phenomenology of the spirit. Okay, that is not an ontological usage. It's not an ontological usage. But when you talk about the phenomenological school, something that owes its lineage to Friedrich Nietzsche and to Martin Heidegger, then phenomenology is ontological, that is the pursuit of being, the pursuit of the human condition, the state of the human being, and it is that which denies a distinction between existence, appearance and essence. Traditional epistemology posits that the appearance need not be the essence of something. The essence is the true meaning. The appearance can mask the true meaning. That is what traditional epistemology will tell you. But phenomenology of the Heideggerian variety, later on used by, even Foucault used it to a certain extent when he talked about archaeology. Gadamer used it in reconstruction. Derrida used it in deconstruction. All these come from the idea that the appearance is the essence. They all come from that. Heidegger used the term destruct in German, D-E-S-T-R-U-K-T, destruct. So destroy something, break something, and you get to see what it is. So what appears in front of you with destruction is what reality is. So there's no essence that is masked by an appearance. Okay? So phenomenology as a school of thought is bound with existentialism and is also both existentialism and phenomenology are, what should I say? They are ontological. They are ontological exercises.
Yes, sir.
No, any other? Madam
No,
Padma has left, or is she there? She has left. Hmm. Who else is there?
Sir,
Hmm.
one more doubt from English, general doubt. Sir, for elder persons, we use in Telugu Meeru rather than Nuvu. What about in English, sir?
In English, there is no distinction.
For all, we should use you.
Yeah.
Okay.
People, when they talked about themselves, there is a usage called the royal we. Okay? Instead of, if you consider yourself to be a very important person, or if society considers you a very important person, instead of saying I, you will say we.
Okay.
We will go home now. Need not be a group of people going home. It'll be one person saying that. We will go home now. That is called the royal we. That is the royal we. But when it comes to you, there is no royal anything. Unless you address at the end of every sentence, okay, respectfully, the old usage was sire. Okay, S-I-R-E.
Sire. Okay.
S-I-R-E, pronounced sire. Yes, sire, I shall do at your bidding. And you take a small bow like this. You'll address somebody as sire. If it is a male, if it is a female, you will address her as either madame, or you will address her as my lady, one of those things.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. But there's no, what you're calling is Gaurava Vachakam, that is not there. That's not there.
sir, it is said as madam or mother.
Sorry?
You said madam or madam.
Madame is actually the correct pronunciation. It is still maintained in um, French. Madame is my saying call a dame is a title, just like people were given duke, then there's a duchess. Okay, the wife of a duke is a duchess. So the wife of a lord is a lady. The wife of a baron I think is a dame. It's actually dam. Okay. But in English, in modern English, it became dame. And if you have seen the recent uh, James Bond films, there is this lady, Judi Dench, who plays the character of M, uh, the head of intelligence, British intelligence, MI6. Okay, and that particular lady was given the title Dame. It's actually Dam, but she was given the title, but today people pronounce it as Dame. Dame Judi Dench. It should be pronounced Dame Judi Dench. And when I don't know if that's kind of thing is still prevalent, we used to refer to girls as dames in our younger days, in our college days. And that's not derogatory. Neither is it respectful. It was just, instead of saying females, we used to say dames. Females is a little derogatory. So that's why we used to say dames. I don't know if it is in use till now. I don't think it is. Any other?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Any more questions?
No,
No,
sir.
sir.
All right. Then Amulya, please stay back. The rest of you can stay back. Rest of you can leave. Sorry.
Sir, good evening, sir. This is Soumya.